basically, when we think of Sufism, we usually think of an aspect of Islam that deals with flights into the unseen, supernatural experiences, higher states of consciousness, what you usually think of when we think of mysticism. But in fact, most of Sufi literature actually dealt with virtue theory, or akhlaq. Sufism was divided into two sciences, or there are two subdivisions. One of them dealt with what's called the science of unveiling, and there was another aspect of Sufism that dealt with the science of practical conduct. And most of Sufism dealt with this second half of the tradition of Sufism. And in English, we would probably translate it as virtue theory. The bulk of the focus of Sufism was on virtue theory. And the importance of this was underscored by a hadith of the Prophet where he said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, that I was not sent except to perfect good character or noble character. Now, what is this science of noble character? How do we identify the noble character traits and how do we acquire them and internalize them? It's the science of ihsan or the science of tasawwuf. Now, my particular paper looked at one particular virtue, and that's the virtue of humility. And I took a comparative approach where I looked at Western ethicists or virtue theorists have said about humility, and I compared it with what Sufi ethicists have said about humility. Now, in Western ethics, there have been three approaches to the virtue. One of them which sees humility as a kind of self-loathing or self-abasement. That's one approach to humility. There's another approach to humility that rejects humility as a virtue altogether because it sees humility as a quality that prevents one from acquiring an accurate idea of one's own self-worth. And then there's a third approach which sees humility as a middle ground. And between self-abasement on the one hand and complete rejection of the value of the virtue altogether. Now in Sufi ethics, I think we find a parallel to this third approach because we have a hadith of the Prophet where he said, Al-mu'min la yadhillu nafsa, that a believer does not debase himself. And then we have another hadith of the Prophet where he said that la yadkhulul jannah al-mutakabbir, that a proud person will not enter paradise. So pride is a vice and self-abasement is a vice. So what is this middle ground? It's tawadu or khushu, or humility. Well, I was really pleased by the international team of scholars that they brought. Scholars from Turkey, from Iran, from the United States, from England. There was a really interesting synergy, creative intellectual synergy that was created by the conversations that we were having, and it was important to see what people on different continents are doing in terms of their scholarship in this particular area.